Hello everybody and welcome to the very first Winding Road Best of Awards. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor.
I am Chris from TheTopher.
And I am Tedward from Tedward Drives.
So thank you all so much for tuning in to this inaugural stream. We're going to spend some time here talking about all the different cars we've had up on the Winding Road channel, as well as across all of our other channels. For those of you who don't know, we all drive for Winding Road. I'm sure you've seen our hands from behind the steering wheel and behind our cameras. So this is your opportunity for a face reveal. We know a lot of you have been asking it from the TheTopher. So here you go.
Yep, you really have to comb through some videos to find my face, but today we've got it.
We got your face in a plant. It's all right
this
here.
Is Winding Road plant.
Given to you. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. We hope you guys join in on the chat. We'll be watching it periodically. We got Tedward doing some moderating. So thanks a lot to him. And let's jump right on into it. We'll let a few people kind of hop back in and get going with us here. So we've got some fun things in store tonight. We have some fairly standard kind of pick 4 cars and then pick a winner out of some fun categories that the 3 of us have chosen, sort of through all of the vehicles really we've driven throughout the year.
Do you know how many cars we drove this year? It's been a lot.
It's probably been at least over 100.
Yeah.
Yep, we've been really hitting it hard, doing at least 2 cars a week, plus Tedward's been getting more cars than ever. All the channels have been doing great, so do us a favor, if you're not already subscribed, check the links in the description. We've got Tedward Drives, we've got TheTopher, we've got Daily Motor. Hit the subscribe button on all of them, and go ahead and support us. So we're going to be doing the Best of Awards. We've got 9 of those, as well as what we like to think of as an auto journalism industry first. We actually have a bracket to pick out our best car of the year.
And this is all live. We haven't done this before, so we don't really know what's going to win.
We don't. We went through our entire list of vehicles that we've driven. We picked out some best of 64 finalists, if you will. We kind of threw in cars that you all, as viewers, have enjoyed watching, have talked about, might want to see in consideration. And we kind of made a list of 32 of cars that we think are worth talking about here on the stream. So we're going to go through, have a little discussion on each of them. Some of them are well matched up, like the CX-30 and the Subaru Crosstrek. Some are a little more oddball, like a GT63S versus a Miata. But we're going to talk about them in terms of cars that we were impressed by and would own and would recommend. Things that if we're comparing 2 cars against each other, kind of just have more merit from a driving enjoyment and ownership enjoyment perspective.
These are cars that we would buy or we would appreciate owning.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys have any problems with it, we're doing Fight Club style battles in the back parking lot afterwards. So
9 o'clock, hit us up, and you can tell us why we're wrong. And then
No, this is 100% probably going to be the biggest argument I've ever seen in a comment section, because this is going to be the most fun bracket ever. So
we've got some good arguments in store for you tonight.
And
this is going to be like an Italian Christmas family dinner, and everyone's had way too much wine. So I can't wait.
It's going to be exciting. If you want to follow along, we'll obviously have the bracket up here on the stream, but there's also a link in the description if you'd like to make a copy, do your own bracket, and watch as we fill it out live. So, without any further ado, let's get to the first of the Winding Road 2020 awards. First up, we've got the Best Lifestyle Vehicle. Now, these are cars which, as we fill them out, realized pretty much just mean off-roader.
Yeah.
But cars that you can go out and do things in, and not just a Pontiac G6, but something that's actually intended to go and accentuate your lifestyle. So we did do some off-roading in the Land Rover Defender when we had it, as well as the Wrangler. We've all driven the Gladiator. Tedward, you did a lot of good videos with that one.
Yeah, I had the Mojave too, so it was my favorite spec of that Gladiator.
That's kind of the Raptor Gladiator.
It is. It's got the remote reservoir, Fox shocks. I mean, you can spec it out to over $60,000. I think my press car was 61 grand, but you don't have to spend that money because you can save a bunch of cash by, not going for the silly options like painting the fenders. Like, I'm gonna destroy those, 100%.
Yeah.
And then Toyota 4Runner, Chris, you're a GX460 owner. It's just a fancy 4Runner, and spoiler alert, there may be a 4Runner in your driveway before too long, so we had to include that in here.
Yeah, that press photo of the 4Runner is actually kind of ironic too, because that's exactly what your friend is getting, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It looks just like this. Sharp
Nice.
color. So, after much deliberation, we had to give the award to the Jeep Gladiator. It does so many things so well, and even the things it doesn't do well, it's endearing about it, even if it's loud on the highway. It's better at sort of wandering than the Wrangler.
So it drives so much better than the Jeep Rubicon, than the Wrangler.
It really
Yeah,
does.
it's
You get
another level.
There's such a bandwidth in terms of specs you can get. I mean, you can get the diesel in that now, right? You can get
Yeah.
the diesel. Hopefully, they're going to put the plug-in hybrid in there. You can get more of the on-road or the
I'm
off-road.
sure they'll do a Hellcat.
Eventually, they're going to throw the 6.2 and the 6.4 in there.
I would buy a Gladiator. They're legit.
Charlie, real quick, technical question. Do you have a way to turn my gain down just a slight bit?
Of course we do. You're getting a little too excited, are you?
I've been told I am the loudest of the bunch.
Oh yeah, that's a little high.
Not shocking.
Give us a little audio. Let's see what we get.
All right. So you guys can comment below if this is better, say up or down. But anyway, I absolutely am thrilled that the Jeep Gladiator won this. It may not be the best rock crawler due to its long wheelbase. So the Wrangler is still going to exceed this Gladiator in like legitimate rock crawling. But as an off-roader lifestyle vehicle, I cannot think of anything more capable that can do all of the things. And it's like having a cheaper Raptor that you still get to have a Jeep Wave in and
That's
take
true.
the roof off.
Yeah.
It's a convertible, guys. It's a convertible. That's something that cannot be overlooked. It's so much fun to take the roof off of this.
I totally agree. The last time I had a Gladiator, I did take the roofs off. I put them in the back. I just felt like Superman just driving around. It was a good time. So much you can do with it, and it needed something. So we created a category for the Gladiator to win.
Yeah, there is one thing I don't like about the Gladiator. I think it's just a little bit too long, but it's a truck, and just parking in city environments, parallel parking, taking it out to dinner, it's a little bit long for a lot of people's uses. But
There's also an
Everything
image
else.
aspect to it. You have to be okay with like being lumped in with kind of the Jeep Bro Gladiator puts angry eyes on the front of his car. I don't think it's quite there yet, but we're gonna see Gladiators with angry eyes, and I'm not looking forward to that.
yeah, and it's weird looking. It's cool.
It
It's
is.
endearingly weird.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next one. Best track car.
This is a fun category.
Yeah. Chris and I love spending time on the track, and I know Tedward does as well. And when we were talking about best track car, we had to narrow it down to cars that we drove this year, and you and I did drive all 4 of these cars out on track.
We hammered around on every one of these cars.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. We picked a little tighter, twistier track for the JCW. You were wooed by that one. I didn't care for it too much, but you're good with front wheel drive, and you handled it well. Anyone who hasn't seen the TOPHER's video of him taking that Cooper JCW GP around a track, his hands are just constant back and forth. It was impressive.
It seemed
That
like
is
a
an
lot of
involved
work, but I could
experience.
see it being a little numb. I could actually tell through the video.
Yeah, it's uncomfortably numb. That's
Yes.
how I would describe that car.
Chris called me the very first day we had that car and said it's uncomfortably numb. He loved that phrase.
The
And it
big
worked.
surprise in this category for me was the Lexus RCF. We
too.
were out there on like an 80-degree
at
spring
least.
day,
It's hot.
and we had it out there with the NSX, and it held up all day long. No brake fade. You can go in and do the little cheat
The
code,
pedal dance.
the pedal dance, and completely disable stability and traction control, and just throw that thing around. It's not
And now
maybe
that is so critical. What you just
Yeah.
said about brake fade is so critical for a good track weapon as a street car, because what we get all the time from these manufacturers are all these numbers and stats, and guess what? They can't make it 2 hot laps before that pedal goes straight to the floor.
And that's one thing about all these cars in this list right here, is that they all work from the factory on track, and we didn't have any issues with them in stock form, which is
Yep.
pretty good.
I will say Porsches are always immune to brake fade. So Porsche, if you're watching and you want to make best track car next year,
Yeah.
get a GT3
We
our
need
way,
a GT3.
and we'll happily consider. But without that being said, we did go back and forth a bunch with the RCF. We talked about putting the Shelby on there because the Shelby was a ton of fun. I mean, that car has so much character and capability, but you got to have the right sort of track. And if you're not on a kind of a more opened out Willow Springs sort of high speed track, it's a handful.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
And then you get into reliability and costs and all that sort of thing. And you got to question, is it worth spending that much entry cost and then upkeep cost just to have a track toy?
And it's a little bit of a cheater car too, because it's so capable and so fast, it hides your flaws as a driver. So
yeah, the GT350 is really the car that you go out and you kind of just slap it down on the track, and you're going to set, if you don't set an impressive time, you've really tried to drive poorly, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm always more impressed at a track day when I'm in my E92 M3 and someone's a second or two off of me in a Mini Cooper or a Miata. Now I want to talk to that guy and I want to start driving with him, see his lines, maybe get a ride along. But when I see somebody just lay something down in a GT350 or a GT350R, I mean, I just expect it. Of course you're going to drive fast in that car.
Well, that being said, perfect segue to our winner, the Mazda Miata. You see it all the time here on Winding Road. You see spec Miata racing, and like Tedward just said, it really allows a good driver to showcase his or her abilities and competency on the track.
Yeah.
And you can go out and do it. You can beat on it hard. You can slide it around on a rainy day. You can do any sort of track. I mean, if you're in a
autocross, it does. You can set up a Miata to do anything.
Right.
And the new one has enough power to drift, which is pretty impressive.
And I will say, it's not just the easiest car to drive. I remember taking this out on Road America on a wet day, and this was loose. I mean, really loose. If you are not comfortable with oversteer, this is a sketchy car to drive. So on a nice dry day, it's great. On a nice dry road, it's fantastic, but it will bite you. And I think people forget that. People look at Miatas and they think, oh, it's an easy car to drive. It's got a lot of body roll. You've got to manage that weight transfer. And my goodness, does that rear end get light under throttle when it's wet? It's pretty dicey.
You noticed that as well when we had it out in the rain. The shorter wheelbase, you got a good amount of body roll, and you were hanging it out. But as soon as you brought it back, it snapped back on you, and you had to be ready for that.
The NC2, I mean, for that reason, it's also a fantastic learner car because you can grow with that car as a driver, and you can really get down some car control techniques that will serve you well if you want to upgrade to something faster and bigger and better in the future.
And
I will say, ND2 has improved the gearbox. We haven't seen as many gearbox failures with ND2 as we have with ND1. And if we were to make the argument for this car against the GT350, I don't think there's any videos of this car blowing up on track, whereas I could probably find you about a dozen of the GT350.
Also, the diff won't send you off into the grass on a straight line in the Miata.
But
don't know how we know that.
And a set of tires is not going to cost you $800 or $900 when you roast them off halfway through the season. You can go through there's tons of options. There's so many reasons why Miata is the answer, and we had to give it an award somewhere, so we give it to Track Car.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a cop out just giving the Miata another award, but you just can't ignore it.
Yep. I can defend it. It's fine.
Yeah, 100%. And on to the next, the Best Truck Award. We actually got to drive a surprising amount of trucks this year.
All these trucks are fantastic. We didn't drive the Hennessy Velociraptor, but Charlie and I have driven Raptors. We didn't drive an F350, but we drove the 2500 and the
I've
Ridgeline.
driven the F350,
Yeah.
and Tedward got to drive both those, the Hennessy Velociraptor and F350, and you were impressed by both, right?
I was. I think the Hennessy is way too expensive for what you get. I think $125,000 for basically a tune, a lift, some light bars, and an option for brakes is a lot of money. But you're also getting a factory-backed warranty. So if that's what you're gaming for, and you don't want to have to go through any type of other independent shop, you buy it, you get your dyno sheet, you get your warranty. And then the Ford F350, the Super Duty diesel, is honestly one of my favorite trucks ever. I love driving these. They're so luxurious. They're so easy to drive. And against a base F250 petrol car or truck, it's hands down so much better. I think the F350 just really shines in every regard. It's a phenomenal thing to drive.
Anything with 900 pound-feet of torque is usually enjoyable.
Well, and on that vein, we had the Ram 2500 here in Michigan, and again, so luxurious inside. The air suspension made it ride so much better than a large body-on-frame, capable tower vehicle like that should ride. I mean, they are getting pricey, these sort of trucks, but their capabilities are impressive. And I was surprised at the daily drivability of the Ram 2500 as well.
It was just a luxury vehicle with a big bed and tons of towing capacity.
Right.
It's incredible.
And the reason the Rebel TRX isn't in here is we actually haven't driven it yet. We should probably have it really soon, so 2021, it should be in there. But until then, we did drive the Ridgeline. It was the pre-facelifted Ridgeline. For those of you who haven't seen, 2021 Ridgeline is looking a little different. And it was a great truck as well. I mean, we actually did some work with that one. We towed with it. We towed the Honda Talon side-by-side, had a little Honda video going there, and it was so smooth.
I have a confession. This is one of the few vehicles that I would actually replace the GX with. The Lexus GX, yeah. It's just so nice.
That's a big statement.
It's silky smooth, it revs, it's got VTEC. It's all the truck anyone like really needs, unless if you like need to actually tow big stuff.
Over $5 grand.
But yeah, for the average consumer, the Ridgeline does it all, and it's so comfortable and livable. It's reliable. It's been out for a while. Yeah, it's not like a manly like big boy truck, but at the same time, it's just fantastic to live with, and we loved it all.
Well, to be honest, I think that's the big sell right there. Is it's honest with what you usually do. I don't tow horses, as is shown in the F350 photo. What I do is I throw tripods, Pelican cases, and the occasional couch in the back of the vehicle, and I think this makes a lot of sense. I think when you look at the Honda Ridgeline, it's the truck for the people who actually use their trucks or are honest about the way they use their trucks.
Well, I hope you guys are comfortable in the flame suits, because that is the best truck of 2020 from us here. I think it was all well said by both of those guys. For what you actually do, being the unibody design, I mean, it rides so comfortably. It's so just forget about it. Do what you need to do. You can focus on the other things rather than screwing with your truck. I mean, you see these on Craigslist, 250,000 miles. They still are asking $6 grand for them. They hold their values so well. They're reliable. Some people don't care for the looks. We had one in dark blue for our video. We actually have a video on the Winding Ride channel of us towing with it. It towed great. I actually kind of prefer the pre-facelift looks to the new one coming out, but I'm sure it'll look good in person as well. So yeah, Honda's always done a great job with the Ridgeline, and it's our best truck.
I'll await the angry phone call from Rhonda from Ford on that.
Yeah.
Was that 2 or 3?
I forgot which one we picked for this category.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, this is our best used car category, as you can see. And we don't do a ton of used car reviews, but Tedward has some great connections and has a lot of awesome cars that he drives out there. And so a few of these are yours, but they're all cars that we are at least somewhat familiar with and we discussed. So you drove the 911 GT3, right?
I will say, yes, I did drive the GT3. We can get to that in a minute. The two cars on the right, are both vehicles that Tedward drove, called me immediately after driving them, and said, this is the best car I've driven all year. It's amazing. Your Caterham Super 7 video actually made me want to go out and buy one, and now I send Caterham Bring a Trailer listings to you at 3 in the morning every time they go up. So. Yeah,
so out of this category, this is finally the old boys. This is what I'm used to. So I've driven every vehicle in this category, and as much as I love a GT3, because I'm a Porsche guy at heart, I do love this vehicle. I have to admit, at normal speeds, it does not feel special. It feels like a Mark 7 GTI, which is not a knock on the Mark 7 GTI. If anything, it's a boost for the Mark 7 GTI. But I think unless you're wringing it out a little bit, it doesn't have the secret sauce that makes you feel good that the Caterham in this unbelievable Alfa Romeo Giulietta Sprint Veloce have. And I know we're going to 1956 here, but this was my first Alfa. This was the first Alfa Romeo I ever drove, and yes, it's cost prohibitive. I think these are about $200,000 now. But after driving this little car, I understood why people put themselves through the torture of Alfa Romeo maintenance and ownership to own these cars. There is nothing like these gearboxes. There's nothing like the satisfaction of knowing you're going to hit the right gear at the right time with the perfect rev match. This is something that is not figured out in the 1950s in all of these cars. If you drive a 1950s Ferrari, they're so finicky. They have great throttle control, but the gearboxes are really delicate. You need to very gently find your way into those gears. A money shift on an old Ferrari is not a hard thing to do. These Alphas are really geared toward simplicity and driving, super fun to drive. And then we've got the Caterham. The Caterham is a vehicle that you can still go out and buy today. You can buy them new. You can get your kit. You can find your local supplier. But from this one, this 1987 Super 7 1700, really changed my life. This is a car that is the ultimate expression of what it means to drive. There are no frills. Over 70 miles an hour, the POV hat flew off my head. I was speed limited by the POV hat. And I was never happier because all I did, instead of going out to my normal roads, I found these strange little back roads and bombed around there, ripping up and down the gears. And when I saw pedestrians, I'd slow down. They had heard me wailing from the distance. And instead of telling me to slow down or yelling at me, I got thumbs ups, claps, and cheers. If I attempted that in a 911 GT3, you can guarantee the wave and the thumbs up would have been replaced by a phone call to the local police.
Yeah, or the Tedward's #1 sign. Yeah.
That is a finger that I have displayed quite a few times.
The Caterham is lovable, it's true. And if anyone's seen the new latest Top Gear, or not Top Gear, but Grand Tour special, that'll give you even more reason to love them.
Were we timely with that one?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
A little sneak peek.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the GX460.
Your trusty steed.
Oh, man, it's just...
I do love it.
Yeah. Yeah, you drove it. You've driven it many times. You've been confused with the TheTopher driving it.
People think I'm you when I drive that car. I got coffee and people said, "Hey, you're the TheTopher." I said, "No, I'm Tedward." They're like, "No, you're the TheTopher. That's your GX460."
Yeah.
I have to say, if I had to go out and buy like a personal vehicle that I could just have one car and own it for years, couldn't change, the GX460, after spending time in yours, driving it, experiencing it, it's a really compelling car. I don't think there's anything that can be as well-rounded for the price as that vehicle.
For 20 grand, there's nothing that can really replace it for its off-road capability, its aftermarket support, the comfort, the luxury, the reliability. Like, it does it all. And you can turn traction control off and drift in the snow.
Ask him how he knows.
Not to mention that for $20,000, it's still the same vehicle almost as the current GX460. So you can save yourself 60 grand.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as cup holders aren't important to you.
Yeah, the new cup holders are awesome, but I don't think they're worth $50,000.
Well, that's for the viewers to decide. But for this category, they shouldn't need to because, oh no, it says biggest surprise. That was supposed to be biggest, well, it's kind of both.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
It's
No,
good.
that's, and I agree. I mean, even driving, like having the Caterham in Gran Turismo and different racing games and stuff, it was always such a fun little car. I'd love to get some seat time in one sometime, and I think we should keep an eye out.
We should have had a category, best car we've driven in real life, but in a video game.
Yeah.
Hey, next year.
Yeah,
Tune in,
Forza.
2021.
Uh-huh.
And with that, we will move into the bracket. So, like we said earlier, if you've tuned in after our introduction, we're going to be picking our car of the year based on this NCAA March Madness-esque car bracket that we put together. And we haven't done this before. We have not filled it out. We will be having these discussions live, raw, and unedited to bring you all a genuine, live, in-person best car of the year. So let's hop right into it here. Tedward's going to take care of the spreadsheet for us. Last is CX-30 Subaru Crosstrek. Chris, you and I drove these ones literally back-to-back for your channel.
Yeah. I'm very biased on this one.
Tell us why.
We bought a CX-30, so that's my vote.
Clap, 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 clap. I'm going to give CX-30 as well. I was impressed and surprised by the Crosstrek. I expected not to like it. My first day in it, I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
But I like press cars that change your opinion over the week that you have them.
Sure.
And that was something that happened with the Crosstrek. It was cool to drive it back-to-back. I thought the Mazda was so much of a better deal at first, but I think if you spend more time off-road, you maybe live on a dirt road, that sort of thing, the Crosstrek might be a better bet for you.
If you live in Colorado or out west and you need ground clearance, get the Crosstrek. It's like the perfect fuel economy, saver, fun little SUV, counterpart. But there's a lot of wind noise. It has a CVT. You can't get the more powerful engine in the manual. I would get a manual Crosstrek. That's a pretty good buy.
Good to know.
But the CX-30 is just, it's fun. It kind of reminds me of my Mark 6 GTI. It does a little bit of everything well. It's efficient, it's functional, it's sleek, it looks good, it's really luxurious. The Bose audio in the premium is fantastic. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
It's just a nice overall car, and I was really impressed with what Mazda's done with it, because it's just kind of the sweet Goldilocks perfect middle child in the Mazda lineup.
And keep an eye on the TheTopher for winter review of the CX-30, because like he said, he does own one. He's got some winter tires on there, and I'm sure our videos will be coming at some
We got a front-wheel drive one. It does really good reverse winter donuts.
Great.
Yes.
And just to fill everybody in, Tedward has driven some, but not all of these cars. So if he seems a little quiet, it's because he's letting Chris and I hash it out, and he'll come in for the tiebreaker.
I had my thunder with the Alpha and the
Yes.
Caterham and the GT3. You
Got
guys
a
can
rest
can hash it out over the Crosstrek.
Pedestrian cars.
Hyundai Ioniq, Volvo XC40. For me, I love the Ioniq lineup. It is, no joke, one of my favorite vehicles to drive. And I think it's one of the most compelling cars with its plug-in hybrid version, the standard hybrid, the electric. It's so much better than the Prius in almost every way. But my message to you, Hyundai, is sell the EV in the PHEV in all 50 states. If I'm not mistaken, the EV Ioniq is only available in like 13 states, the zero-emission vehicle states. And for that reason, I think the XC40 is a pretty neat car, and I would pick that. How about you?
Ooh, and then we're pitting CX-30, XC40 against each other. I would agree. Yeah, I did hear about a lease deal the other day on Ioniqs that's like $99 a month for an EV,
That would be pretty good.
but not in our state. So
Probably California. You get all the tax credits in there. The dealer
Yeah.
gets to keep the tax credits. I can see that. So XC40 with that cool orange interior that we had.
I
don't think any other-
would be clicking on this, but my ancient laptop has just decided to freeze on me. So you
That's
continue.
okay.
So we're choosing XC40.
Yes. If you can't get back to it, we can do it here from Winding Road. Well, not Winding Road. TOFR HQ.
Yeah, go ahead and
Next.
do that.
that's the XC60
Yes.
versus
Volvo
CR-V.
XC60, Honda CR-V. I think the XC60 is a really excellent, just all-around car. You get a lot of different powertrains. It looks good. I mean, all Volvos look good inside and out now, but I think it sort of takes, like, the XC90 might be a little too expensive and large for some people. The XC40 is quite small. If you want a Volvo SUV and you want the Goldilocks, you go XC60.
It does it all.
Honda
Tows
C-
3,500 pounds.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Honda CR-V, it's solid, but I wasn't wowed.
Boring.
Yeah, and the sound
boring.
system lost it for me. Honda sound systems really need to go somewhere.
If you want a Honda CR-V, get an Acura RDX.
Oh, good consumer advice.
Yeah.
So, XC60 there. Ford Escape, Toyota RAV4. Now this is one, I think the very first review I did under Daily Motor was a Ford Escape. And
The
it
Escape
one
was a surprise.
you and I drove together
Yeah,
a year ago.
We did like 12 videos on that car.
I was impressed overall. I think it's a compelling lineup, but the RAV4, you liked the Prime.
Yeah, we almost bought a Prime instead of the CX-30.
Yep. And my father owns a RAV4. Just bought it this year.
Yeah.
So it's a good car as well.
It is nice. It's just, I mean, it's kind of a tough pick because the Prime is the best one, and you can barely find them just because there's a battery shortage and supply issues due to COVID. But I'd probably vote RAV4 Prime.
Speaking of that, we haven't seen the Ford Escape plug-in yet, have we?
Again, supply issues.
Okay, I was going to say, we
batteries.
were excited about that
Yeah.
in the winter last year, and then I haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
Tedward, do you have any tiebreaker Escape RAV4?
I'm gonna go RAV4 because I have seen the Escape and I know I don't want it.
Okay, we're giving it to RAV4.
That brings up another point. The interior on the Ford Escape is dismal. There's no going about it.
The
Like, you have
RAV4
to
is pretty
not
dismal.
care about the interior quality and just care about the driving experience. And the Ford Escape is fun because it's based on a Focus platform.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to drive.
Can't
but
get a Focus anymore, so
Yeah.
get an Escape.
Ford's interiors these days,
Just these days, though.
these days and forever.
Okay, moving down, another Volvo, the XC90, against the Land Rover Defender.
How did Volvos get in almost every
They make
round?
excellent. Either that or I'm
They're
just
all
owned
the
by
same.
someone.
They
That's
all
why they're
drive
all-
identically.
They're all really good.
Oh man, this is a tough one because I would get an XC90 over a Defender, but the Defender was fun. It is cool.
I remember when the Defender showed up, you and I were together, and we were like, wow. The presence of the Defender, which shows it's bigger than you expect, and it's so different than anything else on the road that it is endearing, but after spending time in it, I don't know, the driving dynamics were just so that I kind of got uninspired after a while, and I think the XC90. I mean, when we had it, you were looking up used XC90 T8s.
Yeah, every Volvo T8 plug-in hybrid that I drive, I look up used versions of. So I would get the XC90 plug-in hybrid T8, but any XC90 CPO used is a good proposition, and both are about the same price, and both will depreciate to be like $5,000 someday. So I would vote XC90.
I vote XC90 as well. You okay with that one, Tedward?
I'm back online. So I just wanted to double check. You guys chose XC60, RAV4, and then XC90.
Yep. Sorry, Doug
Right.
DeMiro.
We
Land
have
Rover
so many
Defender.
Volvos.
All right, this one's a little odd. As I said at the beginning, these aren't all necessarily category specific. We tried to match them up a little bit at the start for that, but we had to get the Miata in there somehow, as well as the wonderful GT63. There's actually an S on there as well. GT63S is one of my top 5 favorite cars ever. I've spent a lot of seat time in it. I got to drive one for my birthday weekend last year, 2 years ago. It was just, it's the capabilities of that car are so incredible. They just took a GT, AMG GT, and somehow made it a 4-seater, and it's so good. But the Miata is so good too. So I'm kind of bummed that I put both of these cars in there.
The Miata already won an award, and the Miata is the winner no matter how you cut it, but I'm going to vote GT63 on this. I was blown away by that car. It's not often where you want to just go out and drive a car for the sake of driving it.
Yep.
And actually, both the
I was just gonna say
GT63S
that
and the
applies to
Miata
the Miata.
fall into those categories.
Uh,
You just want to take them for a drive, but the GT63 was so impressive. We had so many crazy experiences. I gave people rides in that car, and it's the fastest car they've ever been in.
Oh, yeah.
Bar none, and it's one of the quickest cars we've ever driven.
Yep.
It
was the car that if money were no object to me, I would pick that as my daily. And I think that being said is why I have to give it the win.
It was $199,000.
I'm glad they
Well,
kept
I
it under
haven't driven the
200.
four-door. I've spent some time in AMG GTs, and to have the usability of a sedan in that vehicle with the theater of that beautiful hot V twin-turbo V8 is just so nuts. And sorry, little Miata, I would happily choose the Mercedes keys on road, track, or otherwise.
Yep, true. And I also appreciated that you and I had the M8 not long before, and we thought it was just hot garbage.
I mean, it was a fine vehicle. I was just.
It was numb.
It was a
the
600
steering was
horsepower
gone.
snooze fest.
Yeah, it went really fast in a straight line, and it was ugly and green, and it just wasn't. And then we got the GT63S, and we're like, oh wow, this is how this car should be.
I do think the M8 would really shine on track, but the GT63S shined everywhere, and it was so much fun to drive to the shop,
Yeah, M cars have definitely become a little more competitive with Tesla, where yes, they go very fast in a straight line and it's incredible, but everything else, it feels like it's falling short in the field department. Although I will say the M5 competition blows my mind when it does in a corner, so I'm not totally against it. But
we like the
I
M2,
digress.
and we like the
Oh
Supra.
yeah, that's in there.
Yeah.
The Supra was my favorite BMW of the year.
GLS, there's actually a 580 after that. I can adjust the font size against X7. So you have not driven an X7, but you've driven an X5. It's pretty similar. Tedward and I have both driven X7s. I gotta go X7.
Did you have an M50 or an M40?
I've driven both.
Okay, I love the X7 M50i. It absolutely blew my brains apart that a car that large, that heavy, could perform in a way that I could track down. If you passed me on the highway in a GT3 and thought you were hot stuff getting into that on-ramp, I would make sure you knew that my big buck teeth grills were gonna let you know that I'm faster than you. And I'm gonna tackle your weak driving bum down to the stoplight after that highway.
Hashtag
It
driver
is just
mod.
incredible. Oh, I love that X7.
Oh, I totally agree with you. The first time I was in an X7, it was a tight, twisty road. It was like B-road, back road style, exactly where you'd want a small sports car. I was amazed with how well it hustled. It was incredible that you could fit 6 or 7 of your friends behind you and do that with that car. BMW's been killing it with their SUVs lately. Kind of a shame that their sedans and coupes haven't followed, but it's X7 for me. The GLS was cool.
I like
the
that
hop,
it had
hop mode.
the donk hop mode is the best thing about the GLS, and the fact that it has like 50 screens.
Yes.
All of which are customizable. But yeah, I will drive an X7. I'll default to your guys.
I will say that the biggest issue, the biggest flaw with the X7 M50i is that it makes you drive like a BMW owner. I was not a polite X7 driver. I'll put it that way.
You need to go to class to get some like etiquette, some X7 etiquette. Next, Volkswagen Golf / GTI. We drove both against the Civic Type R, and this might be the first one where you and I.
Yeah, for some reason Charlie doesn't like the Civic Type R.
I don't like the Civic Type R. I've spent a lot of seat time in it.
Yeah.
And I've never been charmed by it. I think it's too much. It's too expensive. The tires are too thin. I don't like the shifter. I think the metal shifter's stupid. It's too hot in the summer, too cold in the winter. It's just not me. I think the looks are silly.
It's okay to be wrong.
I'm gonna agree with Chris on this. I think that the GTI is the better luxury car for the daily driver. However, if you're putting both sets of keys in front of me and saying we're going for a drive, I'm gonna check that Type R box every time.
The Type R has the fizz.
Well, as long as you don't try to track it.
Yeah, I mean they can be a little bit overheaty. And Tedward and I know a little bit about that, but I think it depends on the track, depends on the day.
And it's not like Volkswagens are without their issues. So
yeah,
No,
I mean I was never been able to track.
Choose your battles, man. Do you want to overheat and have it pull power, or do you want to lose your brakes? Because the Audi Volkswagen game is you go out to the racetrack and you cook the brakes.
Yep.
I will cede this one to you only because you are a previous GTI owner and are speaking from experience.
I never could get my GTI to work on track.
There you go.
Yep.
Civic Type R against my will.
Oh, also, get under a GTI, look at the rear sway bar end links, and then laugh at the plastic. And then we will go and award the Type R.
On to the next, Corvette versus Acura NSX. I think we were very impressed by both cars when we had them here. I'd always heard about the NSX, how it's the daily drivable supercar, blah, blah, blah. But it really took that to definition, and it was great on track. It was great to drive around. It turned heads. It was classy. It's everything the Corvette can do in a classier package. Like, it shows that you don't just drink Bud Light and, have a mullet. It's like the mid-engined daily driver car for the classy individual.
What happened to the minivan class award?
It's in there.
Did we go over that?
No, we do 3 at a time.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
We'll go back. Don't worry.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the Corvette.
But that being said, I think the Corvette is the better of these two cars. I mean, it'd be hard to look me in the face and say you wouldn't choose a Corvette for the money or recommend the Corvette for what it is and what we know it will be.
Although I think the NSX is it's hard. I haven't driven the Corvette. Just aesthetically, I prefer the NSX. I think it's a really impressive car. But at the end of the day, it's wrong in so many ways. Whereas the Corvette really does what it sought to do. And as a package that was long awaited and released, I think it's doing the thing it's supposed to do, and we haven't even kissed the capabilities yet because we don't have Grand Sport or Z06.
Yep. Yeah, both were super enjoyable to live with for a week. The NSX is fantastic, but you can't disable the stability control easily.
And therefore,
the Corvette is the winner because skids.
We will be getting the Corvette back to do some winter driving here soon, so stay tuned to the channels for that. That'll be exciting. And I'd say to Tedward's point, the only fault of the Corvette in my eyes, other than the looks, is it's almost too capable. It's a little harder to have fun with that car than the C7.
But this is just the standard Corvette. It's the everyman Corvette.
Well, it's going to be even worse once the
Yeah.
Grand Sport and the Z06 come around, and you can't even come close to the capabilities of that car unless you have them on track. But it's an amazingly impressive car and deserves the nod.
It's very refined.
Oh yeah. Next, Honda Odyssey, Chrysler Pacifica. We do have this showdown happening in the other set of awards as well, but for me, it's not even a competition. The Pacifica, even though I don't care for the 2021 redesign, the car you and I had was a 2020. You took a road trip in it. It's I mean, Stow and Go pretty much wins hands down right there, but I like the looks. I like pretty much everything about it. It's Pacifica for me.
I'm really torn on this one because I love the Odyssey, and I really appreciate the Pacifica for what it can do, just because it's so freaking usable. I don't know. I don't know what to vote for.
This is not good because I've driven only the Pacifica and I was not impressed with the transmission, and the Stow and Go drove me nuts because there was like a bucket in there. You have to move a bunch of stuff. It was a very convenient car, and I'm sure it's great for the price. It was a lovely driver as well. It was a nice little cruiser. I had no problems with it. Other than I just thought the transmission was a little blah, but I think it was more long ratios than slow shifts.
I was curious if anyone could help us decide in the comments.
Well, FCA could help us decide by coming out with a Pacifica Hellcat. And,
well, that actually, you raise a good point. Not that we're voting on the 2021, but now you could get not only a plug-in hybrid with the Pacifica, but also all-wheel drive. Something that the Odyssey is not only lacking on the Pacifica, but the Sienna as well. There's no hybrid from Honda, and there's no all-wheel drive from Honda. As good as the Odyssey is, I mean,
all right,
you gotta go Pacifica.
All right, Pacifica, 6-inch lift kit, overland vehicle.
It'll lose against the Corvette, we'll be fine.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
we're not worried about this race.
Yeah.
Chevy Bolt EV against another Volvo, the 60, V60.
We have too many Volvos. I'm voting Bolt EV. If anything, just because of your video that was perpetual tire squeal, constant tire squeal.
Violent video of
Yeah.
No, this is why we are who we are, because a lot of people comment. My favorite is when people comment and say, "Why are you driving like this?" And we're like, "Because." That's the only answer. Because.
Well, not only that, we already had a Bolt POV test drive from Tedward, and he did it justice. So I had to differentiate, you know. And
I don't know. I didn't do that one. That wasn't me.
No.
No,
That was
never
me.
did.
Yeah, I've always liked the Bolt. Even though isn't there like a fire recall right now or something? I
There's
don't know.
always recalls from Chevy.
But you just park it outside. It's fine. I like the Bolt. I would buy one.
The thing is, we had the Volvo V60 T8 and the Volvo V60 Cross Country. They were both so good. I think the V60 Cross Country is a car I would buy if I were in that.
That might be the best Volvo.
Maybe one of the best cars. I mean, it's
Yeah.
wagon.
I'm going Volvo because I think it's a very nice looking car. And if you recall, Chris, we saw somebody had a V60 Polestar with just the beefiest 6-piston brakes, and I thought, oh, I gotta have those brakes.
And if we don't vote Volvo here, then we can't end up with Volvo versus Volvo at the end.
All right, I'll vote Volvo. The V60 is the perfect Volvo, and I think we're seeing a trend
We
here.
are seeing a trend. It's almost as if you also own a Volvo.
I do, but it's like 20-some years old.
Acura TLX versus the Cadillac CT5.
TLX all the way. I think
TLX
it's
not
awesome.
Even, not even worth
No
it.
question. Not
awesome.
even a question.
And the CT5V is the most confusing name ever because it's it's just infuriating. I don't know why
It's
they
the
did it.
CT55. It just has a regular numeral and a Roman numeral.
Yeah, it's not a V. It's like a V Sport trim.
Yeah.
But
Everyone got mad at me
Yeah.
for complaining about that. They're like, oh, how hard is it to understand? The Blackwing's the new V. And I just said, why?
yeah.
They had a thing going. They were building a brand around V. And then they're like,
And then they went and diluted it.
Nah.
The TLX though was just such a big surprise because I didn't like the previous TLX. I was like, why do people buy these? It's ugly. It's weird looking. It drives very heavy. The super handling all-wheel drive was just a plow fest. It just understeered like crazy. But the new TLX doesn't plow as much. It's amazing to drive. The ELS audio system is maybe the best sound system I've ever heard in a car. And
Very good.
it's just a really good overall vehicle. And all it really needs is a set of like sticky tires if you want to
cough, cough,
drive
Type
it
S.
fast. But yeah, the Type S is coming out, and that's going to solve all the performance
Yeah.
woes.
I will also say, if you had my family held hostage and said, I need you to name every Cadillac in the lineup in order of size, goodbye, my family. They're getting executed because I have no idea what their nomenclature is anymore. I don't understand why they name cars the way they name it. The only Cadillac I know for sure exists is the Escalade. That's it.
The only one that's not alphanumeric.
I used to also kind of think that way about Acura's
Acura.
lineup
I
too,
almost said
but
that.
that's okay.
But at least they all end in LX. So
Yeah.
you just
They've
gotta get
cleared
the
it up.
first
They've cleared it up.
Or no, because
Yeah.
it's MDX.
I still want the legend to return, but all right, we got to stop talking about Cadillacs.
Supra M2.
This is tough for me because
Oh.
the Supra is really good. but the M2 manual is one of my favorite cars of all time. We didn't drive a manual.
Tedward, what do you know about BMW M2 explodiness?
Well, they have crank hub issues, but it's just typical of any S55 motor, which is the engine used in the F80, F82 platform for the M3 and the M2 competition. It's not very common. However, it does happen, and it's something that can be preventatively repaired. For me, I am going M2 on this one. I think the Supra is a little more of a stance machine than it is a performer. And I know Jackie Ding will not be pleased with my commentary on that, but the car just doesn't do it for me. It's fine to drive, but I would much rather have a DCT or a manual versus being stuck with that ZF Auto.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. I think the Supra is a great sports car with a very ordinary passenger car transmission. And next year, if they give it a manual, we'll give it an award.
Okay, you heard it here. I have to agree. I love the Supra. I think it drives really well, but it's a little too one-trick pony. It's not great really at anything other than being like a
BMW?
other than being like a not top tier BMW. Like, it's a very good driving car, but there are so many cars I'd buy or recommend before it.
Yeah.
That it's just kind of like when Car and Driver gave that 10 best again this year. I was like, really? Like, I get first year cool is hyped up, but oh my gosh, give me a Boxster or something.
The M2 has so much more personality.
Yeah, even if the
It
steering
does.
is awful, it still
Sometimes
has a lot
it's too
more
much personality. Sometimes the M2, this is not a pass on the M2 shortcomings, because I think the steering's a little numb, and I think it sends way too much torque way too early to those rears. It just wants to do violent things to those tires, which I know everyone thinks that's fun and games until you're the one footing the bill for the tire rack expenses twice a year.
Yep.
Or the new shrubbery for like whoever's lawn that you've just crashed into.
Seriously, like
Yeah.
I advise everyone not to be a hot shot in M3s and M2s. Leave it in MDM mode on the street, please.
Especially in the rain.
Yeah, don't be a Mustang meme in your M2.
Speaking of Ford Mustang versus Lexus LC500.
I'm clicking it early. It's the LC500. It has to be the LC500.
Well, this is the LC500 convertible too, and the convertible is just sublime.
good.
It's insane.
It looks so good. It sounds so good. It drives remarkably well. But the Mustang, obviously, I mean, there's always the Shelby in the room right there, and it is. I mean, it's a shame not giving the award because I love being behind the wheel of a Shelby Mustang.
You know what?
And it's going away this year. It's almost like, who cares about the Lexus when the Shelby exists?
The Lexus has
I do.
better
I care
steering
so
feel.
much about this Lexus. I am in love with this Lexus. This LC500 is one of the only cars that I look at prices regularly just to see, ooh, please come down.
They're getting down to like high 60s.
Well, and you can't buy an LFA anymore, so I think to build recognition for the LC, I think we should give it that.
Also, I have a problem
wanna
with
say-
modern Mustangs, and it's that Ford has successfully dialed out all of the feel.
You're right.
Everything. And no brake feel, no steering feel. Everything is just, it's numb. It's like driving a Logitech shifter, a Logitech
that
wheel.
LC500, not only does that engine have so much character, that gearbox is lightning fast. And when you drive it back to back with an RCF, you will start to hate that RCF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll do skids.
Oh yeah. Very capable car. Next, Lincoln Aviator Genesis GV80.
That's for you guys.
Ooh.
I liked the Aviator. I didn't love it. I think it's a very good car for Lincoln.
I liked the GV80. I didn't love it.
Yeah, GV80 was one of those cars that the hype was high at the beginning of the week for me, and by the time it was gone, I was like, all right, here are the keys.
Let's pick GV80 and move on.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. GV80.
Sonata
but it's not
or
gonna win.
Mazda 6?
Sonata for me.
Mazda 6 for me.
You got a lot of time with that Mazda.
I did a
You took
road
it on
trip in a Mazda 6, and it
and
made me
you fell in
appreciate
love.
Mazdas. Yeah, the Sonata is great on paper. The Mazda 6 is not great on paper, but it's great in real life, and that's where we live. So
I've spent a lot of time in Hyundais. I'm going to give this to the Mazda.
The difficulty for me is just the breadth of the Sonata lineup. Having it, I mean, now you have a hybrid, you've got the N line. I mean, there's a lot going for it. I do think the fact that the Mazda 6 is still in consideration and it's as old as it is a testament to the Mazda. And I like giving awards to Mazdas.
I mean, the Mazda 6, you can get the 2.5 liter Signature. It has 250 horsepower.
Yeah, but it doesn't really feel like you're getting the upper motor. It just feels like what the base car should be.
Yeah.
Whereas like you get behind some of the like the Sonata N line. I mean, I guess you haven't driven it, but it's. I mean, it pulls.
Is it basically just like a 4-door Veloster N?
No, it's much heavier feeling than that.
Okay.
It's kind of what like the Ford Fusion Sport should have been.
I see.
But yeah, I'm fine. The Mazda 6 is really good. I remember meeting you with that car when we were giving it back, and I was like, this car is really nice. It's just, it's the subtle things that I think owning it, you grow to appreciate.
Driving the Mazda 6 that week was a deciding factor in getting the CX-30, which makes no sense, but it was.
Right, because you didn't love the car at first, but
No.
800 miles later, and it was your car.
I mean, in that class, I would get either a Honda Accord or a Mazda 6. I would probably get a Honda Accord, honestly.
If we had driven a Honda Accord this year, it would be on the list.
Yeah.
But
literally any Honda Accord is like, it's the best sedan you could buy today.
It's probably a good thing it's not on the list.
Yeah.
It's true.
So there's our round of, what would that be, the round of 16? Our We Liked Them category, picked out and ready to go.
Now do we do minivans?
We do.
Yes.
What comes next here? Worst car we drove this year.
Oh, man.
We've got the Volkswagen Atlas. Questionable powertrains. I think it looks better now with a very early mid-cycle refresh.
I have a lot to say about the Atlas.
Go for it. You can have the floor.
So, 2 vehicles on this list suffer from horrendous throttle tuning. I think we just froze.
I think we're just sitting. Oh, no.
You're good.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway,
we are frozen.
2 vehicles on this list suffer from horrendous throttle tuning, and one is the Volkswagen Atlas, and the other is the Subaru Ascent. Should I just turn this off and turn it on again?
Yeah, go for that.
Oh, I think.
I mean, I can see you guys rocking and rolling.
We've
still.
overheated.
Oh no, you did freeze. You did freeze.
All right, I got a notification.
All right,
we're back. Quick little camera glitch
The
there.
Canon EOS R6 overheated. Big surprise.
Wow, should we get like a fan like blowing right on the camera there?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is solidified me buying the Sony A7S III. Okay.
Camera reviews.
So, actually, let me like flip the screen around. Maybe that'll help.
Oh yeah, cool it off a little bit there.
Yeah.
Your
Give her a nice
Atlas rant was getting so heated.
Yeah.
Camera couldn't take it.
So the Atlas, every time this was the front wheel drive, every time you accelerate from a stoplight with even like 20% throttle, it does a burnout, a peel out. The Subaru Ascent, the throttle tuning is, instead of like a linear line, it's just like, I don't know what it is. And I've heard a rumor that Subaru engineers don't really like drive to work, they just take the train. And the Subaru Ascent feels like no one drove it before they put it on sale. It's just,
When
it's
you
a
told
great.
me that, it made so much sense. When I drove the Legacy CVT, and I caught so much flack for hating that car so much, because there's a difference between a boring car. I'm okay with boring cars. This is like actively boring. It like injects boredom into you at unbelievable doses. And that is a difficult thing to do. Subaru has really mastered this, and it blows my mind because they still make great cars. I still love the Impreza, and I can't understand how they have injected so much boredom and like dullness into some of these more consumer-focused vehicles.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the main reasons we wanted to include the Ascent was because even what was the Outback we had, every Subaru that's had a CVT aside from the Crosstrek has been horrendous.
And don't buy a big SUV with a CVT.
Yeah,
It'll
it just
break.
doesn't help.
CVTs are meant for small economy cars, and putting a CVT in an Ascent is just asking for trouble.
Yes.
It really is. The
No,
Atlas.
that should not have made it through. That should have not made it through the first engineering review. I can't believe they put that transmission in that car.
Yep.
The Atlas is slightly better driving dynamically, but it just felt so cheap. I mean, it's a car that's made for the U.S. market. Ours
very
had a
large setup.
screech rattle.
Yeah. Oh, every Volkswagen.
The
we've had
worst
this year
rattle
has
we've
had
ever
that.
had
But
in
that
a
one was
press
so
car.
bad that I called Chris and I was like, I'll pay you $20 if you can fix this rattle. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
And he like called me later.
Actually,
and he's
you owe
like,
me $20 because I did.
You
I fixed it by putting the seats down.
Oh, well,
But that's
that's cheating.
okay.
Yeah. That's not, just because you drive POV doesn't mean you're allowed to just changed the rear of the car.
M235i Grand Coupe, objectively
dud, though.
not a bad car, but just so expensive for what it is.
It didn't drive right. It looks weird. It takes away the 2 Series was a car that was so recommendable for so long. I was like, hey, have you considered a 230i manual? You can get a good lease deal. Now I have to explain to them, okay, consider a 2 Series, but not the Grand Coupe. It's an entirely different car, different architecture altogether. It's stupid naming. It looks stupid. It doesn't drive great. And then we got the A-Class, which was great.
A-Class was awesome.
Yeah.
I actually like the Subaru Outlander Sport. I think it's a little bit of an underdog
Mitsubishi?
in that it's like a rental car that you just have no expectations for, and it does fine.
It was fine, but it's because you lowered your expectations before you even got in the car. If I had told you, like, you're driving a Honda this week, and then I, like, snuck the keys to the Mitsubishi in your pocket and you walked outside blindfolded, you would have been hurt. Like, just...
All of these cars, I will say, the Volkswagen, the Subaru, the BMW, I liked less the more I drove them. The Outlander, I liked more.
Well, that being said, award goes to Subaru Ascent. If those rants weren't enough for you, we're sorry, Subaru, but we know you can do better.
We're being
I feel
completely
bad
honest
because
here.
I think my political vote would have been for the M235i Grand Coupe because I think it signifies like the demise of BMW as we know it. I'm not so worried about Subaru.
It embodies everything wrong with BMW as a brand right now.
Technically Subaru is doing a lot right with this car, so to them that's fair. But for us as drivers, there's no way we could recommend this car.
This is like the new minivan. Like minivans are kind of cool now, I think.
Yeah.
And
This
this
is
is
what
like
would
the
not wanna be
soul-sucking,
caught in it.
stereotypical minivan.
This was a good example. You said earlier those cars that we love to go drive, like anytime we had them. This was one where like I would pick my bicycle to go ride somewhere before having to drive this car to whatever I needed to do.
Also, I think Subaru EyeSight will slowly drive you insane with all the beeps and the inputs. Like,
It doesn't let you drive.
yeah, it's terrible.
It's because they know people are going to fall asleep behind the wheel. They got to be able to take care of that.
Ooh, best 500 plus horsepower car. I thought this was going to be a 600 plus horsepower car, but this allows us to have lots of interesting.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit. We've driven a lot of fast cars. I mean, we were super lucky to be able to do that. And even if they're not objectively good, they're not our favorite cars, there's something special about being a high horsepower beast. And a lot of cars do have over 500 horsepower these days, but I don't think people really recognize still how special that category is because we're constantly inundated with electric cars and special versions of vehicles and the new Hellcat blah 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 that they stuffed that motor into, and from the keyboard and the monitor it looks like every car has 500 horsepower, but when you actually like go and see what cars you see on the road, these are special.
And it's hard to have a 500 horsepower car that's fun to drive. High power doesn't necessarily mean enjoyable.
No.
And these were all enjoyable cars to drive too.
We talked about the GT63S. It's incredible. We'll give Tedward a quick chance on the GTR because he and I have both driven that car. It's awesome. The
I've driven a GTR.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great. We've
Yeah.
all driven it. The Alpina
I just think
B7.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get right back to you. The Alpina B7 was neat in the fact that it didn't. Alpina's always been good at like taking a step back from the M cars and being like, here's the capability, but you're still a comfortable, nice cruiser.
It's the fastest sedan in the world.
And it's the fastest car
the world.
I've driven, or fastest like I've driven in a car was the Alpina B7. It's incredible.
70
how well
miles
it
an
does.
hour?
70 miles per hour.
Good.
Yeah. I got right up to the speed limit. And then the GT350, we've talked about it already today. It's if we had an award for most character in a car, I think it would probably go to that.
Most tramlining.
Most tramline.
Yeah.
Man, we're coming up with these great awards. GTR, AMG GTR. You just drove one, Tedward. Give us the rundown.
I am a Porsche purist
Snob.
through and through, and I was in love with this Mercedes AMG GTR because the feedback you get from this vehicle, the four-wheel steering is dialed in so well. The throttle control is outrageous for a vehicle with twin turbos. That's what I'm really impressed about with this. It's a 4 liter, right? Not a 4.4. 4 liter twin turbo V8. It's a little guy, and it just really puts the power down in a linear and impressive and building way. And I swear, I need to look into it. I haven't looked into it. I think it's got a little bit of boost by gear going on because it feels like it accelerates harder with every gear. But really, it's just the fact that you can chuck this into a corner with confidence, with a little bit of wiggle in the rear, and it shouldn't be as confident as it is. It should be scary, and it's not. It's phenomenal.
The other awesome thing about that car is how special the cockpit feels. Getting into it, you sort of like hunker down and you feel like Batman. And then
I do think the gear shift is in the absolute wrong position. It's way too far back. You have to do this.
Yeah, that's weird. You have to like get shoulder surgery.
They should have
after
stuck
you
with the
drive it,
column shifter. I know it wouldn't have felt nearly as special, but like it's Mercedes thing, the whole column shifter, and they abandoned that. But the other thing that's cool is the GT63S, different motor, but like similar awesome sound. No, it is the same motor. Actually.
No, it's the same engine.
Yeah, same engine.
It's the same car with 4 doors, basically.
But with the GTR, you sit so much closer to the back of the vehicle that it sounds just that much meaner, and the sounds the GTR makes are so cool.
It's the only other car in that category and price range that I would have over a GT3.
The M178 engine is the VQ35 of the Mercedes world. They use it in everything.
Yeah.
And the award goes to the GT63S. We talked about it earlier, the breadth of that car. This was really close going between the GTR and the GT63S, so it could, for the right person, it could go either way.
You can take more people along with you in the
Exactly.
and that's the best part about
And that's what
cars like
Tedward
this.
said earlier, is that like if he could have the capabilities, or at least 9/10 of the capabilities and drama of the GTR and put it into this package, and the fact they pulled it off is incredible.
They're drifting with 4 people in that car right now. You just know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then even the rear seats are bucket seats.
Exactly.
It's like perfect, like they hold it.
Yeah.
So definitely kudos to Mercedes AMG on that one. Next, best van. We talked about them a bit already, but we tossed in here the Sienna. This is technically a 2021 model, but we did just have it. I liked the head-on look for this one because you can see it just gaping at you. It looks like a Tokyo Drift mobile, but I do kind of like how they made it a standard hybrid. It's remarkably efficient to be able to get 30 miles per gallon, hauling all that stuff. I mean, to be fair, we didn't have it loaded up, but just the fact you can move that vehicle around.
What did you get on your highway fuel economy test on that? Like 33 or something?
I think, something like that. It was high.
Yeah.
It's not off the top of my head, but just impressive. And Toyotas are going to be reliable. It is a good package. We talked about the Pacifica. It's awesome. Odyssey's really good and solid as well. The looks are tad polarizing, I would
The
say.
Sprinter van.
The Sprinter 3500 XD that we drove. It was so goofy. And
That's where my apocalyptic ready kids are going to be riding to school in.
Yep. And then we talked about it. We looked at all of them and decided Durango SRT, best van. I got a chance to drive that one around track. We had the SRT Hellcat on the track, and we also had the normal SRT here in the spring. That car is so cool.
It's my most searched vehicle of the year for like listings online for sale. It's just awesome. It's so much fun.
It is so much fun. I have done so many launch controls in that, and I made it my personal goal to beat the record on the press car of 0 to 60 times, and I did.
What'd you get?
No, it's like a 4.4, I think.
Okay.
But the fact that they decided to throw the blower in there, which we all knew was going to happen, but driving that car back to back with even the Charger, it launches faster than the Charger because of the all-wheel drive.
So good, yeah.
And just driving around, I was thinking to myself as I was shooting the video, I could have kids in the back here, and we could be going to soccer practice, and the noise you get to make, it's pretty neat they did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The brakes are incredible too, by the way. That's the thing. This thing handles. Like, you are not afraid to really push it, and it really does some incredible things in a corner.
I've been to many FCA and many events where FCA has brought the Durango SRT to track, and everyone who gets out of it has a smile on their face. The brakes, the engine, everything lasts all day on track. These powertrains are pretty bulletproof, to be honest. The Hellcat will probably have better cooling for track work, but it does it all.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, so if you need a van, get yourself a Durango SRT.
And a track car. We were at this. So just a little side story.
Yeah.
We were at this really rainy track day in the GT350 and the Miata, which we just drifted around all day. There was a Durango SRT there that was built for like time attack, and he was ripping.
And just, all day. He was like, he'd just come in super chill and be like, "Oh, you guys are just chilling out? I'm gonna go run some more."
And it had like 800 horsepower with a blower on it.
Yeah, ProCharge. It was something else. So.
And these are so simple. The regular SRT with no blower, it's just a V8. It's gonna be able to cool itself. It's gonna be relatively reliable. You're gonna be okay. Whereas, yes, the X7 M50i is probably faster than it, But if you were to say, hey, you own these cars, which one are you going to thrash and not worry about maintenance on? I'll take the Durango.
It's reason enough to have 5 kids.
Yes, and I agree with you there, Tedward, that the SRT itself is enough in terms of the fun aspect. I mean, yeah, you're not gonna like go quite as fast as the Hellcat.
You don't
and
need
the Hellcat will sound cool with the supercharger whining, but the sounds that the SRT make, it's good enough, and you can have a lot.
Your
of
kids are going to be whining anyway in the back, so why?
Yeah, you just shut them up with exhaust noise. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the bracket for the We Loved Them category. Mazda CX-30 versus Volvo XC40. Now, as we mentioned earlier, you guys bought a CX-30. Did you consider the XC40?
We did, but I don't know. The XC40 is all Volvos are so good looking. The XC40 is kind of awkward looking. The CX-30 is a little bit awkward looking too, but honestly, we went CX-30 because price was a big factor. It's so much less expensive. The XC40 is still a premium compact crossover, and the CX-30 is a premium compact crossover, but at like normal prices. So I would vote CX-30 in all my biased.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. The
nature.
Volvo XC40 is cool, but I think it's going to be maybe a tad forgettable in a few years once it's not like a new kid on the block, kind of like Volvo C30 in a way. Like, it was a good car.
No, I think it's going to be forgettable even worse. I think it's going to be forgettable in the way that the Volvo S40 and V40 were.
That's fair. Like,
And that
good
orange
cars in
interior will
themselves,
age terribly.
Yes.
You're right.
So
That's sad because I love that. But yep, Volvo down. Volvo XC60 versus RAV4. This is Volvo for me, no way. Just all the way. The fact you can get the T8, which we had, I believe. Yeah, we've had so many Volvos. I forget, but I think we had an XC60 T8. I've driven the T6. I've driven the T5. The RAV4 is great for all the reasons you mentioned earlier. The Prime, it's a very solid car.
I'm going to vote RAV4 Prime on this one.
I think
Tedward, tiebreaker?
You're telling me that if you could have an XC, we're both plug-in hybrids here. XC60 T8 versus the RAV4 Prime. You've driven them both.
But the XC60 T8 is like $70,000.
Yeah.
And the RAV4 Prime is like 30 after your tax credit.
But you have to be able to buy
And then it's
one.
RAV4 Prime versus CX-30 to the finalists, and
I'm
going to go Volvo because I would rather drive the Volvo.
Yeah.
okay, all right.
The biggest problem with the RAV4 Prime is that Toyota was so ahead of the game with the second gen Prius and all the technology, and there was like one of the first cars with an infotainment display, and it showed like everything you could do, like where your battery was going, how much you had left. It was really ahead of the time in 2004. Now, here in 2020, you still get the same information on your infotainment display in your 2020 RAV4 Prime as you did in 2004 in your Prius. Whereas you have other plug-in hybrids from pretty much every other manufacturer that'll show you like, hey, if you turn your climate control up 2 degrees, you will get 0.4 miles left in your range. And just all these very like techy 21st century sort of tech in there. And I'm really disappointed that Toyota couldn't put that in the Prime.
That's true. Toyota should have done more with the Prime.
Yeah. They're really behind the curve when it comes to electric stuff. And I know they're going to get there, but come on.
Yeah, it takes 10 years.
Another Volvo XC90 versus AMG GT63.
It's time to call the Volvos. Mercedes AMG GT63.
Yeah,
I've
it's
already
gotta be.
given it another award, but I'm fine with it going on.
And the XC90 is pretty old at this point.
Yeah, it's great, but an XC60, unless you have more kids, in which case get a Durango.
Or get a V60.
Or an X7 over the Honda Civic Type R. I mean, you
Oh
guys
my
know I'm
God.
going to pick X7. This one might be tough for Tedward. You're probably more Type R.
I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed the Type R with my week with it, but I don't know. My heart says Type R, my brain says not Type R, because I know that you're going to get a flat tire, you're going to be stranded in the middle of nowhere, you'll probably get murdered on the side of the road, and I don't know, X7, I guess.
X7.
20-inch wheels are stupid. The Type R needs to be a little smarter, a little less ridiculous, even though unfortunately they're doing that, but they're making it really, really ugly now for the next generation. I think the X7 takes it because I think the X7 is one of the best vehicles that BMW makes today, and when I drive an X7, it tells me there's hope for the brand.
I would get a TLX over a Type R too.
Fair enough. I think next year we need an award for best 20-inch wheel car we had, because Tedward was just talking about 20-inch wheels.
Best
on the
30
Civic,
series
and you can
sidewall.
get that on the X7 as well.
Oh my God. Like, I can't handle the RS6. Those wheels are stupid. Even the 992 has a 20 and a 21 staggered setup. Oh, it's just a nightmare.
Yeesh. Okay, Corvette versus Chrysler Pacifica. I won't bother putting up the Pacifica Fit because I know you guys are going to get Corvette.
What's gonna happen? We're getting down to the wire here.
I know, it's exciting.
How many people are watching this?
If we haven't,
Is anyone watching this?
We have 81 people. 81 people watching us debate whether a Corvette or Pacifica moves on to the next round.
For those of you who don't know, we haven't filled this out before, so this is genuine. We're going through and having these conversations, so this is going to get interesting to see what makes it to the Final Four.
We might be very disappointed at the end as well. So
Just as disappointed as you.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Next, Volvo
TLX.
V60 versus TLX. This is V60 for me easily. I think the breadth of powertrains is there. Again, the V60 cross country is one of the best cars I've ever driven.
TLX all the way for me.
Oh my God, I hate you guys. I hate that I haven't driven either of them, so I need you guys to sell me a little bit on your reasoning.
Tedward, what's your PayPal?
The Volvo V60. We could have really done S60 and V60 together, and I think that would have made it even more compelling, which we make the rules, we can change it now. But V60, you got the wagon, you got the good looks, you've got the great, probably the best sound systems. In fact, this is almost a sound system.
Ooh, the TLX does have a slightly better sound system, but I would
liked
argue
the Bowers
that
and Wilkins better in the
Really?
V60. Yeah, I thought it was a more powerful system. I think the TLX is better for easy listening. The V60 was like the more just like it felt like you were in a concert hall. So you got more space, more practicality. You can get a plug-in hybrid. You can get the Polestar. The TLX is really good. It's come a long way, but that doesn't mean it went from last to first. It just means it went from last to good.
the TLX is making me argue against Volvo, and I am a Volvo loyalist.
You've owned multiple Volvos.
So that's my argument for the TLX.
Honestly, I don't think Volvo has made enough of a leap into the future with this V60. I think it's a phenomenal car, but I don't necessarily think it's like, wow, Volvo is really going to win customers over people in their segment. So I've got to go with Acura on this one.
All right,
and it's
everyone.
not
Also, the V60 was not a surprise because it drives like every other Volvo. The TLX was a big surprise.
Next week, Daily Motor live stream, best of the year. We're doing it our way. Volvo V60 all the way to the
Volvo
top.
wins
Tell
out
me
right
right
now.
now, it's going to be a Volvo war.
I think TLX is really big for Acura. Acura is a desperate and dwindling brand, and I think TLX is a breath of some fresh air that I hope will help them revive it.
Well, looks like their life support carries on into the next round. BMW M2, man, we're just putting Tedward in tough positions tonight. M2 versus LC500.
This is easy for me.
Really? What is it?
I love the LC500. I will never, ever in a million years
You
be
just got
sold in a
doughy-eyed.
Turbo 6 over an NA V8. I don't even care if it's a 2JZ, man. I'm going NA V8. What a charming engine.
I will say, Tedward reached out to me at some point after we had the LC500, and you were like, "Come on, how can I get into an LC500? Like,
I made you
Let's do
call
it."
Lexus. You called Lexus. I said, they said, we have one in New York. It was like middle of the pandemic. I'm like, I'm not going to the city.
As much as I love the M2, I think I'm okay with it losing just to tell BMW they should have gotten us a manual like we asked. Because I think if we had the manual, you would have liked it more. I would have liked it more. I've driven it before, but I wanted more seat time in it. And the DCT, as great of a transmission as it is, it turns the M2 into an electric car in terms of its speed just comes on too fast. It's too good and refined. You can't really have as much fun with it. The LC, I spent the whole week just sliding it around with the top down, listening to that sound. It's good. It's really good.
The M2 is a less exciting 1 Series M coupe, and the LC500 might be the best Lexus like ever made.
Right.
When
Yeah,
you buy an M2, you are put in a position to make excuses and give reasons for your purchase. When you buy an LC500, nobody asks you why you bought that car.
Fair enough. On it goes.
They just ask you if you're like retired or not.
Yeah,
They don't
like,
have
do you
ads.
golf a lot?
Yeah.
Mazda 6 versus GV80. This is Mazda 6 for me. I think the GV80 is overhyped. I think it's a really good. I think Genesis did everything they needed to build their first SUV, but I'd pick an X5 over it, and the X5's not here, so neither should the GV80.
I would pick a G80 over the GV80
Oh, yeah.
and the Mazda 6, but the G80 isn't on this list, so Mazda 6.
Yep, we just missed. We're driving a G80 really soon, so next award season maybe it's in, but
Yeah.
until now, Mazda 6. Awesome. We have our final four. Coming into the end here, we've got our final best of awards. What do we got coming up next? The biggest surprise. So we've, you all, if you've been following the auto journalism realm lately, everyone's been surprised by the TLX and the Sentra. I think those are the words that's being used the most. And North American Car of the Year finalists, actually, both the TLX and the Sentra. Smart 4.2. That was you, Tedward. Do you want to talk on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I was just so surprised at how much better it was than the previous generation. It wasn't a new car, but to me, getting in a rear engine, tiny little city car that has a DCT rear wheel drive that operated in a fun and not mutilating way. I was just genuinely happy to drive that car. It looks like a clown car, and you first smile at it because you're laughing at it, and then when you get in it and drive it, you're smiling because you're laughing in it. It's a charming car. It's a lot of fun.
Everyone's laughing,
Everyone's
including the
laughing.
people looking at you.
I will admit, you and I have bounced off the idea back and forth of getting an electric smart car multiple times, and their practicality is limited, but I totally agree with you that the amount of fun you can have behind the wheel is surprising, because you'd think, like, what a ridiculous car.
Yeah, and if you watch Kyle Connor, it'll do skids.
Great.
It will.
Yeah.
Subaru Legacy was a surprise.
Is that a
for how
bad surprise?
awful
Yes.
it was.
Oh,
That
no.
car.
Sorry, Subaru.
Oh my God! Like when I drove that car, I was like, oh, they're never giving me another car again. Subaru will never give me a car again. And I love the STI. I love stuff. Like, Subaru still makes great cars, but my God, I mean, this Legacy, I don't know how anyone could drive this back to back with an Accord. I get it for the safety features and the price, because for $26,000 you get eyesight, you get like the highway lane assist, like
All-wheel
some
drive.
automated driving features. It's really impressive what you get for safety features. However, this car was in my parents' driveway, and they kept asking me, like, whose grandmother is here, because it just oozes 85-year-old woman. It's brutal. It's brutal to drive, and it's just so boring. The CVT is not enjoyable. The engine is not enjoyable. The driving experience is not enjoyable. I was just overall displeased with this vehicle. I started to understand it by the end of the week, but the damage had been done. The damage had been done.
And it didn't quite make our worst cars just because the Ascent was there. And the Legacy does excel at its purpose. I mean, you can envision an intended buyer. But we were surprised how animated Tedward was about how much he disliked it. So it was a surprise in and of itself. But I think the winner, being the Nissan Sentra, kind of goes the furthest to show how far the Sentra has come from just being like bargain bucket rental car.
Yeah.
Chris and I were invited to the press event for this Sentra, and we both drove it. Like, wow! Like, we almost had to double check. Like, are we allowed to be liking this car? What is it about this that we're actually having fun? Are we just jaded? Is this legit? But no, I think everyone who's driven it has been impressed by the interior, the exterior, the driving dynamics. The only thing that leaves a little bit to be desired is the powertrain.
Yeah, it's slow and it's CVT, but it's a
it's
lightweight
drivable.
car in a CVT, which is appropriately matched.
Yes.
And it has dual pinion rack power steering, which
So
is
we need to talk more about that, because
It's
the
freaking
reason
cool.
this car is the biggest surprise is because of bad marketing. They did not highlight some of the most incredible features of this car. And when you drove this car, I drove an Alfa Giulietta Sprint Veloce and called you. You drove this car and called me. So please tell me about the steering, because I don't think Nissan has told anyone at all.
No, I mean, we're not exactly engineers, but we were having lunch with the engineers, and
Yeah.
Chris was like, I mean, tell me what
It
tell me
doesn't
more about
understeer.
this. Like, yeah, no, you can
Yeah.
toss it into a corner and it doesn't like hang the rear end out, but it's confident. And whether you're driving slow in a parking lot, that feels good, but then when you're driving fast and in the twisty roads, that feels good. it's a surprisingly competent and fun and nice, pleasurable to be in car.
I mean, the best way I can describe the steering is when you're steering into a turn, especially in a front-wheel drive car, there's a scrub radius, and there are limitations to how you can tune that with a static steering rack. Nissan has figured out how to turn the front wheels independently so that there is no scrub, and it can adjust almost like alignment on the fly. So it handles like a car that has a crazy trick alignment, but then when you put the wheel straight, the alignment's perfect because it's just adjusting on the fly constantly.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing tech that translates to an amazing amount of driving enjoyment and performance at the limit that I'm sure no one will utilize.
Right, it'll be lost upon people in the rental lot.
I would autocross a Nissan Sentra, and if I ever got a rental car, I'd get a Nissan Sentra because you could just bomb through a back road. Like, we were doing the car and driver test route here in Michigan on it, and Charlie is a fast driver, but I was scared in the Sentra. It was impressive.
Yeah, and it was totally confident and buttoned down, so really impressive. And yeah, I don't know if it would really be to Nissan's benefit to put out advertisements advertising dual rack pinion steering, but you got to drive it. I mean, that's the main thing.
So here's the deal. When I hear things like this, it makes me really lose faith in who we listen to in the automotive journalist community, because I will read an article about this car and I will hear about its color choices, its wheels, its interior, its sound system, yet I'm not reading anybody talking about this incredible steering innovation, and that's the highlight of the car.
Scotty Kilmer will not tell you about the steering.
And it really bothers me because we'll watch major publications review all of these cars, all of the cars that we've driven, and they will not pick out the things that we discuss here. And that is why I feel compelled to continue driving cars on YouTube, because I'm not seeing what I'm feeling in the major magazines.
The mainstream media, automotive media.
No, it bothers me. I think a lot of folks are great writers and they know how to write about these cars. I don't know that a lot of these people understand driving experience, driver feel, driver feedback, and I am not seeing it communicated well enough in their articles. They're regurgitating brochure facts, and I'm not trying to put everyone on blast. It just I want to say, like,
it's true.
As a consumer of automotive media, I really think we all need to take a look at what we're reading, and if what you just read could be found in the brochure at the dealership, stop reading that journalist. It's time to walk away.
And watch Tedward drives. Most desirable car.
Why is the M8 on here?
The M8 is incredibly desirable. I don't know. I think we had to
has a crystal shift knob.
The M8, I mean, as much
It
as
does.
I know I kind of railed against it earlier, it is very sexy. I think it probably should have done is just had 8 series in general.
I think people wrongly desire the M8. That's
yes,
probably why.
yeah, but still desirable. Chevy Corvette, we've talked about it. It's pretty straightforward why it'd be desirable. The only one that we haven't talked about on here yet is the GLS 63. Also an incredibly
Nazi road mode.
capable vehicle.
I still think the X50, the X7 kind of trumps on that.
The only thing the X7 doesn't have, maybe the 2 things that it doesn't have on the GLS 63, the engine sound and character. AMG engines, I mean, BMW engines are incredibly, remarkably smooth, but AMG engines are visceral, and it does that really well. And I still think maybe it's because the namesake has been around for a little while longer, but I think even just looking at that photo, the GLS 63 has a presence that the X7 still needs to earn, if you will.
I think you're right, but I will say, I think that AMG GLS is going to look like garbage in 3-4 years. And I can't believe I'm defending BMW buck teeth, but I genuinely think the X7 is a more handsome vehicle.
Well, the good thing is none of it matters because we would all take a 911 GT3.
It's the dream.
Are you surprised?
The one time I've ever gotten to drive one of these, it was probably the biggest smile maker I've ever had, and it was just on a highway. Like, it was just a normal, mundane drive. But
I drove mine in traffic, and I loved it.
I run it out to $9,000, and I was just like, this is the car that from now on I don't care how much anything costs. Like, what else is out there? I will take one of these.
My favorite thing about driving a manual GT3 is that you have to stare at the tachometer because the first time you get in it, you short shift it every single time.
It's like an S2000.
You can't believe it will continue revving.
Yeah, it goes and goes. Everything about that. I mean, this is kind of like the sports car perfected.
Yeah.
I would take one. Yeah, if money were no object, that would be me, other than maybe a Carrera GT. But
And it's one of the only cars left in this class that you could still get in a manual transmission. Everything's automatic or paddle shifters.
As cool as the AMG GTR is, like, doesn't have the driver involved in this.
Yeah, no.
And to be fair, I would choose a touring, the 991.2 GT3
Yes.
touring.
Hashtag Chris Harris spec.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so good. You gotta have it wingless, man. You gotta have it wingless.
Wingless. All right, I believe that wraps up our best of awards. So back to the bracket.
Back to the
Finish
bracket.
this one off. We are down to 8 vehicles, starting at the top left. Mazda CX-30 versus Volvo XC60.
What's gonna happen?
I'm putting my foot in the ground that the CX-30 is very, very good. I would recommend the Volvo XC60. I think it's, in terms of the whole gamut of vehicles, from the cheapest brand new car, the cheapest Mitsubishi, all the way up to the most expensive Rolls-Royce, the XC60 fits the perfect middle ground of, like, it can do it all, it looks great, it drives pretty well for what it is. You could recommend it to the most amount of people, and as good as the CX-30 is, it's too small for some people, it's too cheap for some people. I'm going XC60.
I am not going XC60 because of the depreciation. I don't know. It's a lot of money to lose, and all Volvos are eventually worth like $500. So
I don't know if they're that. I don't know. The XC60 is a pretty, you know, it's a model name that's been out for a while.
It's true. I don't know. I'm gonna go with CX-30 because I'm incredibly biased.
Right. Do we have
I
a
think-
tiebreaker, or do we need to argue?
All right. I for financial reasons and for style and for the fact that Mazda still really builds cars for drivers, I've got to go Mazda on this one.
All right.
It does represent really good value, and Volvo did well in this.
I'm keeping every Volvo we get from now on. You don't drive lost.
Yeah, I mean, look, I haven't
my
recommended a Volvo in a very long time, and it's not because I don't like Volvo. It's just that I think they get edged out by a lot of better deals.
Wow. All right.
It is a good alternative brand to the Germans, though. I mean, like, if you want something that's cooler, just as good, and fun and unique and special feeling, get any Volvo.
Yeah, I feel like Volvos, like, they should be the top recommended brand for so many different classes now, but I'm losing this argument. Mercedes AMG GT63S and BMW X7. As much as I love the GT63S, and I think it's one of the best cars on sale today, you gotta give the X7 because it's much cheaper. You can get the 40i, which even at the base motor is still so good. We just had it in the X5, we've had it in a lot of other vehicles. It's powerful, it's efficient. The X7 you can do so much with. You can get from all the way up to the Alpina XB7.
Yes, which I'm sure we will. I hope we can drive one soon because I saw that it was so sick.
Yeah, and then even if you just got a base spec X7 that costs
Notification that says everything is ruined.
Reconnection successful. That was quick.
We're good.
I'm going X7. Does anyone?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, it's tough. I'm going to be the naysayer, and I'm glad I'm not the tiebreaker here. I'm going to say AMG GT, even though the X7 wins, but this is because I would rather see sedans and wagons beat out SUVs.
You know, can I change my vote?
You gotta have a good reason
because
I'm pretty firmly in X7 camp.
The AMG GT63 is one of the best cars I've ever driven, period. And it's so fun. I don't know.
It's just so...
I mean, this is what we would buy. Would you buy an X7?
There are so many more alternative realities in my life that I could see myself buying an X7 than I
Would you get an X7 or would you get like a GX460? Or a Durango SRT?
If we're talking new cars, X7. X7 is really good. And driving that X5 recently, reaffirms that for me, that I think it's the class leader there. Porsche doesn't make a 3-row, and that pretty much gives the award to the X7. It's the best driving in that category. It's a really good value. It provides so much to so many people. The AMG GT63S is incredibly good, but it did already get an award from us, even if it's not Car of the Year. I think there's more to talk about CX-30 versus X7 than there is GT63 versus X7, but it'll...
Ugh, this is tricky, man. I hear you. For the money, I mean, like, look, I'm never touching an AMG GT, coupe. It's just not going to happen.
Well, here's a question for you then. If in 10 years, like, not only has your like net worth grown, but costs of depreciated GT63Ss have come down, could you see yourself considering one then and saying with?
No, I mean, I'm never buying an SUV. So for me, it's always gonna. I gotta stick with my guns on the 63, just because I literally will never buy an SUV unless it's a GX60, 460, 470, whatever, to go off roading in and like have my coffee in the woods.
If you're gonna have a German vehicle that's gonna depreciate massively and barely function in 10 years, at least have your kicks. And the GT63S does that.
Okay.
From a reliability standpoint too, and I'm not speaking from experience, I'm just, if I were to put my bets on which engine will do me better in the future, I think the M178 is the horse to bet on for reliability.
Cool. Well, I do love that car. It's in my top 5 favorite cars I've ever driven. I can't say that for the X7. So.
Okay.
Okay. On
Seems
it
like
goes.
you just disagree with yourself.
X7, but
no, I'm not
this
disagreeing.
car,
I
man,
still
just
pick
really
the X7 for
knocks
this
my
award,
socks
but
off.
I can concede that.
Okay.
Corvette versus Acura TLX. I'm actually not a huge fan of the C8, but unlike the Supra and the GV80 and a few of those other big cars, I don't think it's overhyped. I think the Corvette lived up to its hype. I think Chevy did everything they needed to do with that car and more. And even though I would take a C7 over a C8, especially like a C7
Same.
Grand Sport, I
Same.
respect Corvette for doing what they did with this car. TLX is great, but it's gotta go Corvette.
I agree with you. Yeah, Corvette. It was great. It was so much fun driving that car for the week. You got so much attention. You felt like a celebrity.
Right.
It was awesome to drive. Like, you could daily that, and we're going to find out here very soon if you could daily that in the winter as well, which is exciting.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to drive. I've driven the C8 both in Z51 and non-Z51 packages on the track, on the streets, on the highway, and I just remember it being so cool. But just the first thing I thought was I'd take a C7 because the C7 made you feel like you want to just go out and do burnouts in the local Walmart parking lot and just be a hooligan, whereas a C8 was like, where's the track, bro? Like, give me the next corner. I want to eat it up.
Yep.
So, but so impressive. Look at that formatting, guys. That's just excellent.
Everlet.
The Everlet Corvette.
Lexus LC500 versus Mazda 6. This one's actually really tough for me.
LC500, because then it's LC500 versus Corvette. I mean, the Mazda 6 is a fine automobile,
You're
but
right.
the LC500 is a fantastic
That's it. I'm
ode
good with
to
that.
just V8 naturally aspirated perfection.
Wow. All right, we got ourselves a final 4. We want them. We need to get ourselves down to 2. We've got
We're
Mazda
leaning in.
CX
Body language is shifting.
CX-30, AMG GT63, and S. We'll include, there is a normal GT63. We'll include that in there as well. Chevy Corvette and LC500. What this does tell me is the bracket works.
I'm prepared to fight. I
These are
am
the
so
best
happy
cars
right
we've driven
now.
all year.
CX-30, AMG GT, it's AMG for me. If you guys haven't picked up on it, I like the CX-30, but I don't know why you wouldn't get a CX-5. When we first had one, he was like, we might consider this as our next car. I was like, why don't you get a CX-5? It's more spacious, practically just as efficient, looks about the same, but you can actually own it for more than 3 years before you grow out of it. But he still got a CX-30, so it must have something going for it.
Yeah, it's been a good run, little Mazda, but for me, AMG.
Yeah, okay. It got pretty far.
And then Corvette LC500. I'm doing it. I'm saying LC500, and I hate myself for it. But it's maybe it's the counterculture in me. I don't want Corvette to make it to the final. I think the LC doesn't get enough recognition, and I think the Corvette gets so much limelight here in 2020 and 2021. Let's sing the LC song.
Tedward, what do you think? Because I'm going to have to think about it while you're speaking.
I think that, like a fine wine, the LC500 emerged from nothing and became the phoenix rising from the ashes. This car was so strange when it debuted, and now I think about it a lot. When I see one, it blows my mind. When you see an LC500 actually out in the wild on the street, I change my speed to stay with it longer. I just want to look at it. I want to watch it move. I want to watch it turn. I want to see the lights. I love this car in a way that I haven't loved a car in a very long time. I think the LC500 is one of the purest expressions of automotive engineering and design on the road today. It's insane. I love this car.
The Corvette would get my vote if it were just a little bit more exciting, and I think the LC500 does its job really well for what it is, and it makes me want one despite its terrible infotainment.
I think we should point out, just because I think we'll get roasted if we don't, you could buy almost 2 Corvettes for a well-spec'd LC500.
But you couldn't now because Corvettes are all $100,000 because they're marked up and unavailable.
Yeah, but that won't last too long. But on the flip side of that, resale value on the LC is going to be excellent.
Nearly every C8 Corvette I have seen in the wild, the emotional roller coaster goes like this. I say, ooh, and then I go, ah. Because man, something's a little off about it. I've seen some aero packages that look good. I saw a red Corvette with the aero package with the wing, with the little black accents, and I thought that looked good, but I still think the C7 is a prettier car, and until we get that flat plane V8 out of the Grand Sport or Z06 or whatever they're going to do, I think it's Z06, I just don't think it's even near its potential at this point. And if anything, the C8 Corvette was more hype than reality, and good job for everyone getting them, but I am not on the C8 train just yet.
And this is also just a really high vote for the 5-liter V8 from Lexus.
Gosh.
In the RCF, it's fantastic. In the GSF, it's fantastic. That engine is just intoxicating. And
but they're
I
also
would buy
so
an
smooth
RCF.
at the same time.
Yeah.
They did the bandwidth is really incredible. I mean, the Corvette, it's a tractor motor at the end of the day. I mean, a pushrod V8. When you're driving easy and slow in a Corvette, it doesn't sound good. Like, you need to be on it hard for it to, like, sound like it's doing what it's supposed to.
Oh, and by the way, what's the red line on that Corvette?
$6,000. It's
Yeah,
pretty low.
What's that red line on this LC500?
And the rev limiter on the LC500 is, that's like reason enough for it to win.
It's angels singing. It's, like I said earlier, it's the closest you can get now to an LFA. And, it's got to go there. It's got to be the LC.
Well, here we are with 2 very expensive cars at the end.
I have chills.
Yeah, this is tough.
This was, I really appreciate how this brought down. I mean, we got from looking at cars like the Kicks, the Cooper Oxford Edition, the Subaru WRX. I mean, we drove all
WRX
these
was
really great
good.
cars. But I like that naturally by discussing these, we got to 2 of my favorite cars. I mean, if you just had to ask me on the street a week ago or so, right off the top of your head, what are some of the coolest cars you drove this year? I'd probably be like, AMG GT and Lexus LC500. Like, I took so many photos of that car when I had it, the LC. I remember standing in the parking lot, it was either on our live drive or review or something, and trying to grapple with myself, would I take this over a 911? And because the 911's always been like that car for me. And I think what Tedward said earlier about if you see an LC500, much less a convertible, even just an LC500,
It's exciting.
It's exciting. You're going to go, I saw an LC500 today. You're going to go to bed that night and you're going to think, it was a good day. I saw
When
an
you
LC500.
see a
Well, plus you're like, is that-
GTC63,
You're like, is that guy an architect?
yeah.
A 911's like, oh, that's a nice 911.
I bet that man's house is, or that person's house is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the AMG GT63S, I remember before we got this car, I was really excited that we were able to book it because I drove one last year and Chris had not. And I just remember telling you, like, just wait till we get the GT63. Like, this car is going to knock your socks off. You're going to have so much fun. It's incredible, its capabilities. And some cars we get, they've got really high bandwidths and capabilities, but you'll never experience that joy on the street. Something about the AMG GT63 allows you to still feel the rawness of the steering, the engine, the exhaust, all of this sort of exploited, even at just a highway on-ramp. It's impressive.
It's completely opposite to the BMW M8.
Yes, in every way.
And it's amazing that AMG has been able to put that much driving enjoyment in something that is a modern vehicle with all the modern amenities.
The reason I would vote for LC500 in convertible being the car of the year is the appearance compared to the AMG T63S. I think it's sexy in person, the AMG, but it's weird in photos. It's not always great looking. And I now that we got to this point, I want to sing I want to give Lexus credit for making this car that I don't think gets enough credit.
Something we haven't mentioned too, we're all are we all 5'10"?
Yeah.
On Tinder.
Yeah. All right. 5'10". Yeah, I actually was 5'10" on Tinder, but 5'9" and like when I go.
I'm 5'9.5", you guys.
Oh, you're good.
Fun fact: met my wife on Tinder. And I put on my profile as 5'10", so we'll just go with that. But there is zero wind noise or zero wind buffeting.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
In the cabin of the LC500 at any speed.
You could shoot like POV video with the top down without like.
We didn't have any microphone covers.
No.
Yeah, it was impressive. So it's just as comfortable with the top down as it is up. There's no wind buffeting. It's an amazing luxury. It's what the convertible Mercedes, what is it, the SL? It's like a modern
the new
SL. Yeah.
It's your turn, Tedward.
The AMG GT63 is one of the most incredible cars with one major flaw, and that is that its drivetrain is shared with vehicles that cost half as much or less. As much as I love what they've done with the 4-liter twin turbo, and yes, here and there's different tunes and maybe different materials or different oil sumps and things like that for C63, E63, AMG GT, there is something to be said when a vehicle is ground up built to be the thing it needs to be. And the LC500 is its own beast. That engine is outrageous. That body is outrageous. The upgraded suspension after the facelift is outrageous. And then they give us, a top-down experience that you can hear this, frankly, illegal exhaust. I don't understand how, we're talking about a Lexus that I hear and I just think, who cut the muffs, man? That thing is nuts.
It's true. I was cruising with a bunch of like McLarens, Ferraris, supercars a few years ago when the LC launched, and they were all like, that thing sounds awesome. And they were all running straight piped exhausts, and that says a lot.
So my choice is definitely LC500.
Are we unanimous with
We
this?
are unanimous
I can't believe this.
With our winner, car of the year.
I can't believe this worked, Charlie. It worked.
I thought we were going to end up with like Nissan Leaf that
We'd
didn't even make the first
we
round.
gotta turn the stream off. This didn't work.
Yeah.
LC500. I wish we had confetti. The thing is, we couldn't prepare for this to have like a splash screen afterward of like LC500 best car. So you get the press release tomorrow, but very nicely done.
Wow.
And what it really does is it makes me want to go drive an LC500. I wish we had one right now. I want to call up Lexus tomorrow and be like, sorry.
Doesn't it have like a Rankine cycle V8? Isn't it some weird thing? What is it called?
I don't know. I'll have to look into it a little more.
LC500 cycle. I forget what it's called. They'll let us know in the comments.
Who cut the muffs? We've got some great comments here.
Yeah, we should, now that we've gotten to this point, we should...
Atkinson.
Oh, Atkinson cycle.
Atkinson.
Wow.
I usually don't like Atkinson cycle anything.
Yeah.
Like the Toyota Tacoma
Well, it's usually
Atkinson
used
cycle.
for the wrong reasons. It's usually used for efficiency. Impressive. Good to know.
Yeah, and the Mark Levinson someone in the
very
comments
good.
brought that up. It's the best Mark Levinson in the Lexus line.
The only thing that's a downside, if they could bring the touchscreen infotainment into that car, that'll help. because the infotainment's not fantastic. But once you live with it, you get used
The
to it.
touchpad in the LC is better than it was this week in the LS 500s.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I think it splits the difference between a lot of things because look, as much as I want to drive a 1,800-pound, 200 horsepower screamer little roadster, that's great. I think a real car though, in real life, that does a lot of things, the LC500 is surprisingly quick in a straight line. It's rear wheel drive. It has phenomenal handling characteristics. It has phenomenal brakes.
You get a limited slip diff.
Yep.
You get a limited slip diff. You have a very responsive gearbox, and you have the reliability of Lexus. I mean, look, if I owned an AMG GT63 and I was approaching 100,000 miles, I'm on my way out. I am looking at values. I'm going to try to sell this thing.
I'm taking
That
my
thing's gotta go.
$150,000 loss.
I buy that LC500, and I swear to God, if I bought an LC500 today, new, it might be the last car I ever buy.
Well said. Awesome job, guys. We came up with the best car that we drove this year here at Winding Road. Porsche, if you want to compete next year, pony up. We'll see if we can.
Yeah,
we'll see if
send
we can
us
hold.
stuff.
Yeah.
We can be bought, Porsche, just so you know.
Cool. Should we read through a few comments and say thanks to everyone? I want to see what people have to say.
Yeah,
Let's see
and
both of
people
our-
are
have questions.
glad about the LC500. The only thing I'm disappointed about with the LC500 is that there's no LC500F that got killed.
Well, you never
I
know.
know.
Who
Oh,
knows?
that would have been the best car.
I
Like
know.
legitimately, it would have been so outrageous. Like it would have been painful. It would have been so ridiculously good.
Yeah.
So what do people have to think about? What do you guys think? Chris should have chose the X7, blah, blah, blah. LC500 versus RCF. I mean, unless you're going to spend time on the track, I think I'd pick an LC. I didn't care for the RCF much in daily driving. It wasn't until it won me at the track.
I love the RCF just because you can get one for like 35 grand.
Yeah.
I'd have a GSF if it was in that realm.
But yeah, the LC 10 speed puts the GSF and then RCF into like, it makes it feel like they're just super old and dated.
I will assure everyone in this comment section, if you were handed the keys, which it has happened to me. I've literally driven an RCF and an LC500 back to back in the same 15 minutes on a racetrack, and the RCF felt like it was 15 years old compared to the LC500.
Yep.
I think someone pointed out really nicely here. I already lost it, but LC500 is like the most universally liked and so fewly bought. Like rarely bought. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that does sort of add to the appeal, but yeah.
We're into a category where you're spending over $100,000 on a Lexus when if yes, I love cars, I got to have a lot of money to pony up for a car like that, because if I'm spending $100,000 on a car, it's probably going to be more of a track-focused vehicle for me. So it's going to be the GT3. It's going to be a used 991.
The LC500 will work on track, but barely in stock form.
It's not the right choice, but as the probably one of the greatest GT cars ever built, it is so good.
Yeah. Yep.
Shake my head. The 930 should have won, like a Porsche 930, like a 1970s 911 turbo. I don't know, man.
Thoughts on LC convertible, 500 convertible top up? It's actually remarkably quiet. I remember
it was fine.
Alyssa at Daily Motor was like, "Oh, I thought like soft tops are always awful." I'm like, "No, we were out there in like the rain and the cold, and it was really not."
Probably because no air goes over the roof
Yeah,
ever.
somehow they just like vacuum
Something to
sucked
do
air
with the
out.
design of like the front fender on the LC. It's like a proprietary Lexus thing, and they did it with the SC430 back in the day. I'm pretty sure they have a patent on it, and it will like divert air around the cabin so that nothing really.
Not to
touches
mention, it's not a Miata soft top. Soft tops in these luxurious coupes, like if you get in a DB11 Volante, like that roof is like magnesium. It's
Miata soft top
really
was
not soft.
so loud.
Yeah,
God.
the auto soft top you drive thinking there's a hole in the back. You keep checking.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still torn on whether to get RF or rag top in the Miata, but I think if it's a daily driver, you gotta have the RF.
I'd still go ragtop and just wear like Apple AirPod Pros that just block out the sound.
I am just so thrilled right now that there's a bunch of people saying cut the muffs, because me and Eddie have been screaming cut the muffs for like 5 years now. And this is like a crowning achievement of popular culture entering the mainstream here.
There we go.
Well, objective achieved.
Yes. Just a few last things before we're done here. Audi A1, that was actually one of our newer drivers, Ben. He's been doing
He's
a lot
doing
of
a great
editing
job.
on Winding Road. He's doing an excellent job. If you ever see a Winding Road video with mistakes come through, they're not us, they're Ben. But he drove that A1 because he's more of a globetrotter than we are. And
He's in Scotland.
yeah, so comment on the video and we can get back to you on how he liked it. Anything else? Cut the muffs. Yeah.
Cut the muffs, baby.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you all for keeping with us. We'll maybe do a little announcement on the channel tomorrow with a photo and everything. I think Lexus will be happy with that.
Yeah, maybe Lexus will send me an LC500. I will take it in the winter, man. Give it to me.
What's the best new car that's fun to daily drive for below 35,000? Off the top of your head, what do you think?
Oh man, my heart says Type R, but my brain says no.
Veloster.
Veloster.
Under
maybe?
35 though. You can't get that for under 35.
That's true. Yeah, you can't.
Veloster N. What else has been really fun? I mean, dude, if you haven't driven a Honda Accord 2-liter manual, do that and then decide if that's for you.
Yeah.
I love the Accord. What else? Okay. Are you guys about ready to call this one a night?
I think so. I
look,
just yawned. I'm
I
sleepy. It's my bedtime.
Yeah, this went longer than I expected, so thank you all for tuning in.
Oh my gosh, come here, Mia. Come here.
She knows
Yeah,
it's
get the
about
dog
dark.
here.
We've got
Come
Winding
here.
Road Dog.
Yes, Winding Road Dog is in the house.
I want you guys to know. So this dog, what you don't know is that Chris Amos, the TOPher, regularly sends me audio clips of this dog growling. And I'll get text messages and it just says like, oh, you have a voice message, and it'll just be this dog going, "Arr, arr."
She is so fierce. We've trained her to be a vicious attack dog. And yeah.
Yeah, she's wonderful. I just want to thank all of you guys for watching our videos.
Absolutely.
We put so much effort into this stuff. We have to source so many cars. I mean, think about this. We are like putting up like a car almost every day lately. We drive so many cars, whether we love them or hate them, to share with you guys. So you get a feel for what it's like to drive everything from vintage Ferraris to brand new Hyundais. And the fact that you guys stick with us through all of those cars is incredible. And we appreciate that you are such a major part of what I consider the enthusiast community, because you still care about cars, and that's what we care about. We care about cars. We care about what makes us smile. We care about what makes the automotive industry interesting. We care about trying to promote what we love about driving so that we get more of it in the future. And sometimes that's going to mean driving hybrids and EVs and making sure that we have a voice in shaping that. Whether they listen or not, I don't know, but we're still going to shout. So thank you guys for being the supporters of those voices.
Totally agreed. We've had an awesome year in cars and year in growth. Everyone's channels here have been doing really well, and that couldn't have been done without all of you tuning in and watching and supporting the editing that goes into it, the hard work getting the cars. And we genuinely, I think Tedward said it really well, we put a lot of thought into every car we drive. Chris has had other journalists come up to him and say, how do you review a boring car? How do you review a car that's not good or bad? And it's because they know that every car that he's gotten into over the last 9 years, we think about. There's never a car that we just go, I'm just going to drive it, regurgitate the press material. We can't do that. You hear our genuine thoughts. We're not just typing something up. So really appreciate the support for that, and we look forward to giving you guys a lot more good, raw content like you've seen here tonight.
Yeah, and this channel has always been about the driving experience, and I think that's the beauty of Winding Road, is that we don't talk in the videos, and we let people kind of come up with their own opinions and their own viewpoints, and it just lets the car talk for itself. And if you want to hear our opinions, you can go to Tedward's channel. You can go to Charlie's channel. I'm pointing in the wrong direction for both of those. You can go to the TOPher and see what we feel about these cars after living with them for some time. But yeah, it's always been about the driving experience, and yeah.
And it'll continue to be.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, thanks, Tedward, for calling in and joining and being a part of this. This worked out really fun and worked out well. And yeah, go ahead, hit up AutoTrader, start looking at LC500 values, because we know we just raised the resale value on those at least 20%.
Yeah. We need some type of car search site to sponsor us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to hit up Daddy Doug DeMiro before he launches.
I know.
his,
Where's Daddy Doug, man?
Yeah.
He needs to give us some of that cars and bids cash.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Have fun.
Ooh, Charlotte had a good idea. Best sound system award.